I think we're live. Hello, everybody. And we are following up on our 5-day fertility challenge with a special sneak preview of what's going on tomorrow. And to do that, I'm joined today by my colleague, Dr. Haley Nye. She's a naturopathic doctor and a nutritionist, and she has some interesting tidbits to share with us. And we're going to chat all things prenatal supplements today. Welcome, Dr. Haley.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So, Dr. Haley, you're joining us from the West Coast, and I'm in the East, so this was a good time of day. So, hopefully, everyone can tune in live. And if you are joining us live, you can type your question or comment into the comments below, and myself or Haley will answer them in real time here on our live broadcast, which will be about 15 or 20 minutes. And then if you weren't able to make it and you're watching this as a recording, no problem. You can still pop your questions in because we'll be able to see them afterward, and we'd be happy to address them for you. So Dr. Haley is a naturopath, as I mentioned, and a nutritionist, and her practice is focused on fertility. And she's also the owner of a wonderful new company called Tiny Feet. And Haley, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what got you so inspired to work with fertility, and then we'll jump into the nitty-gritty around prenatal vitamins.
Perfect. Really, I first was really inspired about preconception and fertility back in 2012, December to be exact. I went to a really amazing inspiration talk up at OHSU, which is a prominent medical facility here in Portland, Oregon. And what they were talking about was how important preconception care is to the health of our children in their first couple of years of life, and then definitely long term, and how much our what we do preconceptionally impacts really multiple generations to come. And so I was just shocked by this information, and it was really awe-inspiring. And how, going into naturopathic medicine, we're all about prevention, right? We just want to be able to prevent these chronic diseases. And I thought, what better way to prevent a chronic disease than by preventing it before the child's even born? So that's what got me really inspired. And then just going through more of my medical training and then post-medical training, I just was able to learn so much more about egg quality and sperm quality, and how it affects your ability to get pregnant, and how it enhances your ability to have a successful IVF, if that's the route that you have to go through. So it just made so much sense to me to be able to say, why not optimize your body before you actually conceive this being that's coming into the world.
Absolutely. And I love this so much. It's certainly a message that we don't hear often enough. And I remember too taking might have been a similar program several years ago by a teacher who's a naturopathic doctor. And he had a 30-year practice career, and we were actually learning about chronic illness. We were learning about MS and autoimmune diseases and asthma, and what we can do to treat individuals who are growing up with or have them as adults. And his most important tenet that I think he shared with us was that we can be programming these chronic diseases out of the population.
Right.
And women before conception are the number one most important place to invest for public health.
Right.
No one is talking to young women about this.
Right. It's a really important public health crisis, actually, that's coming up. The Lancet just did a 3-part series on it, and it's going to become definitely much more prominent. And I find it is your job and my job to be able to educate couples. Really, a lot of the research is showing both men and women how much the programming in their DNA before conception really contributes to the lifetime health of that child.
Yeah, it's absolutely mind-blowing. It's so exciting, and it's also kind of scary at
Mhm.
think about it, because
Right.
how sensitive we are to the different exposures around us and to different nutrient deficiencies. So when you're talking to a client about prenatal vitamins, what
Mhm.
kind of mistakes are you seeing in your practice, or misconceptions that women in particular may be under? Because usually we see the women first, and then we start talking with the gentlemen following that. So what's going on with women that you work with when they first start to work with you and their prenatals?
I think the number one thing is that a lot of women don't think about taking a prenatal vitamin until they actually are pregnant,
Right.
or when they find out that they're pregnant, they associate it with pregnancy. That's starting to change, but really, it's extremely important to be able to take a high quality prenatal vitamin with good quality nutrients long before pregnancy. So at least I would say at least 6 months before you get pregnant, or ideally and absolutely necessary, 3 to 4 months before you get pregnant.
Mhm.
So that's my number one thing is, women just aren't taking the amount of prenatal vitamins before they get pregnant. The other thing is that unfortunately, there's gummies out there. They're just the type of prenatal vitamins that are available don't offer enough nutrients. They're not packed full enough of what we actually need. And they might come in a format that, such as a gummy format or something that just isn't a maximal absorption. And it might have folic acid in it, and certainly not enough to, again, give us enough nutrients to build a healthy egg, right?
Yeah.
So it's the biggest things that I see.
Yeah, yeah, I would say similar. And the majority of us understand we should take a supplement in a prenatal supplement when we're pregnant. But hardly anyone in medicine anyway is talking to women about how important it is, if you could conceive, to be at least 3 to 6 months, like you mentioned, prior to conception, making sure that you're really well nourished and that you're covering off those nutrient deficiencies that can make a massive difference to your baby's health and to the viability of your pregnancy.
Exactly.
Mhm. And so one of the issues that I see too is a lot of women are told by their family doctor that this, in where I practice, it's usually one of two pharmaceutical brands of prenatal vitamins are recommended as the Cadillac of prenatal vitamins. I've had women actually be told to use that term with them, as outdated as that sounds.
Okay.
Of the prenatal vitamins. What is the Tesla of this category?
Right. Cadillac or Tesla.
So, and what they're consisting of is, um, it's a pink one in the morning and it's a blue one in the evening, and they're tablets and they're like rock hard, and they contain some of the cheapest forms of the nutrients that don't do the job that you want them to be doing,
Right.
and they happen to be covered by people's drug plans. Whereas really good quality prenatal vitamins are not, even though they're way better. So I don't know how those two pharma companies got in the good books with the insurance companies somehow and became prescription only, even though their formulas are far inferior, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah. So how do you help women understand how to cross that bridge? Like, what are you showing them on the labels that you really want them to know about?
I would say the number one thing is the form of folate you're getting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, you cut out just a little bit. What did you say?
Oh, I just said, yep.
Oh, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the type of folate that you're getting is really important. There's a lot of really cutting edge research that's coming out about folate and the form of what is most readily available in our body, right? So there's a couple of things with folate. First of all, 10% of the population has a mutation in our folate enzyme that makes it to where we can't take that man-made folic acid that is so prominent in almost all prenatal vitamins. And we can't actually change that into the active form. So it builds up in our bloodstream. It can't cross the blood-brain barrier. It's not very usable. And then the other problem with folate is that there's some new research that's coming out, is that there's actually an autoimmune condition against folate receptors. And so there is autoimmune means that we're kind of making antibodies to our own cells or our own enzymes or receptors in our body. And so those antibodies are blocking those folate receptors. And the only way that folic acid can actually get through the blood-brain barrier is through that receptor. And so if it's blocking, it can't actually get through and do its job, right? So if you take an activated form of folate, or what's called methylated form of folate, then it doesn't need to use that receptor. It doesn't need to use the enzyme. It doesn't need to use the receptor. It's active. It's ready to go. It can actually do its job without having to be blocked by those mechanisms. And so that's why for all of my patients, I recommend, even for men and women in their prenatal or in their multivitamin or prenatal vitamin, is recommend folate. Methylated folate, it might say like 5-MTHF. It might say even folinic acid is better than folic acid. So that's FOLINIC, not just folic acid. And so, so that's the number one thing with that. And then another thing with the multivitamin or with the prenatal vitamin is that's often forgotten is choline. Unfortunately, we actually need a lot of choline before pregnancy. They do suggest around 450 milligrams of choline. Most prenatal vitamins can't get that amount of choline in the vitamin. So I often will choose a prenatal vitamin that will have a little bit of choline in it, and then also supplement in addition to that prenatal vitamin. Unfortunately, choline is really hard to get through our diet. We can't necessarily get enough choline in our diet unless you're eating a ton of liver every day, which I haven't found any of my patients that eat liver every day. And then, and like 4 egg yolks a day, which, is quite a bit. So other than that, you're going to need to supplement with it. And choline is really important for neural development in children. So they found that it's connected with neural tube defects in addition to folate. And so, and then also it might be connected to, even preconception-wise, connected to a higher risk of autism, because it, again, builds that neurological network for children when they're growing.
Having your folate level preconception and or during pregnancy be low can put your child's neurological development at risk of these now fairly modern conditions in their neurological system. That's really interesting. So yeah, I don't have, I myself don't eat any liver. I wish I could. What I'll do is I'll take the giblets from like a turkey at Christmas or Thanksgiving, and I'll definitely integrate those into my bone broth and just hope that I'm extracting a good dose of that. And sometimes I'll take a little bit of a crumble from the liver and kind of integrate it into a dish like stuffing. And it works well. And I know my dad used to hide that stuff in our stuffing for sure. I always remember asking him to get me the giblet-free serving, and he would have the giblets because he was cool with it. But those are very traditional foods to be eaten, and they've been kind of sequestered out of our normal day-to-day modern diet, at least in North America.
Right.
Yeah, and we've changed our palates a bit. But I always encourage moms to introduce liver early to their babies when they're starting solids, and just have their palate be more used to it. And it's almost like we want our prenatal and preconception nutrition to mimic what our DNA would just remember as being a signal for optimal fertility. And people used to eat the whole animal, everything in it, and find a way to use it. So
I know.
So we could do liver extract, and that would have a little bit of choline potentially, and or we can supplement directly. So you're topping up a prenatal that contains a little bit of choline plus some choline. Most of the prenatals here don't have choline in them yet either. So that's a nutrient to consider preconception and early pregnancy. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, great. What do you find with minerals in the prenatals? Do you have any concerns with the products that you're seeing with iron and magnesium and calcium?
Yeah, so usually what I'm finding is magnesium, calcium just are definitely not enough. They're either non-existent, they don't have them in them at all, or they're just extremely low. Um, Typically, they assume that you're getting those through your diet. Unfortunately, if you don't have a really clean and nutrient dense diet, you're typically not getting enough of those. Even if you're eating enough dairy to be able to get the calcium amount that you should be having before pregnancy, which is around 800 to 1500 milligrams a day. That's quite a bit of dairy, a lot of dairy. And, I always suggest for my patients that you need to eat clean dairy, which is hard to find. So I have it be more of like a condiment instead of a staple of their daily intake. And in that case, then you're not getting enough calcium. And even in your prenatal, you're not getting enough calcium. So I find, oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting a call.
It happens.
It's like hooked up to my computer. So,
Yeah.
And so there's that. So, and then, I find that magnesium, I have another thing going on my computer. It's like, it's freaking out. And then magnesium just isn't enough either. And I find that that's extremely important to be able to balance that calcium magnesium level for, again, like neurological networks and growing those healthy bones. And that starts again in preconception time. So those are the two minerals. Other really important ones, iron, you mentioned. Sometimes the iron, if prenatal vitamins are hurting your stomach and you're having a hard time digesting them and it's causing constipation, and a lot of women will end up getting the gummies because, they don't like the actual capsules because it's hurting their stomach. Especially when they find out they're pregnant, and then they really have a hard time digesting that.
Yeah.
Most likely the prenatal. But oftentimes it's the type of iron that you're getting, or, I find that iron bisglycinate is really much easier to digest. And then not having too much iron, right? So some prenatals will come with 18 milligrams. Some will have 27. That's pretty typical, the 27 milligrams. And then some are even higher at 45 milligrams. So it's really important to just work with an experienced practitioner knowing like, okay, what is your ferritin levels? Are you already anemic? It's really important to balance your iron levels and increase your ferritin levels up to that like 50 to 70 range before you get pregnant, because once you do get pregnant, again, it's hard to digest iron. It's hard to absorb it when you're feeling pretty nauseous. Yeah. And then your blood supply is, doubling every month. I mean, it's really just increasing. And so your iron need goes up a lot. And that's why they add it to prenatal vitamins, is because you're going to need it, especially when you're pregnant. But so in some of my patients, I'll just supplement separately, depending on how much that they need. Or, some don't need it at all. And then I'll try to find a prenatal that doesn't have any iron in it.
Yeah. Well, and I find too that by the time a woman is in her second trimester, even if her iron is good leading up to that point, it can just sort of plummet.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much metabolic demand, and iron is helping build that baby. So it's really good to kind of pre-nourish yourself before the pregnancy, because like you mentioned too, if you become pregnant and you are nauseated or you have constipation, I mean, nausea of early pregnancy is super common, and it's one of the most common reasons why women can't tolerate their prenatals. But a lot of them, again, are those harsher forms of iron that really create stress in the digestive tract. And studies have shown we can do better. We can do better for women.
Yeah.
Being a woman in the preconception and childbearing years doesn't have to feel like crap.
Right.
It's not the rule.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, this has been so fun, Haley. I could chat about this stuff all day with you. You have tons more resources to share. So if people want to get to know you more, where can they find you?
You can go to my website at drhaley.com, and I have a unique spelling. So it's DRHAYLEE.
All right, on the feed for you. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. That's it. And then I am also going to be, again, I have my other company, online company that's up and coming, which I'm really excited about. So stay tuned. It's going to be at tinyfeet.co. So it's TINYFET.co, not .com, but .co. And exactly. And if you are interested in doing a preconception assessment and just kind of seeing like where you and your partner are of exposure, lifestyle, medical, etc., it's just kind of an initial get started preconception care questionnaire, and then recommendations for you. It's not up yet, but it will be hopefully like mid-October. But if you're interested, you can actually put your email in there, and then we'll notify you when it's ready to go.
That's wonderful. That's so exciting.
Yeah, thanks.
Dr. Haley, it's been a pleasure to chat with you today. And for folks that are joining us after the live, pop your questions on, and Dr. Haley and I will see them, and we'll be able to connect you with some answers. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I really appreciate it.
Okay, talk soon.
Hey, bye-bye.
Bye.